surfed all goddamn day. And that night at the party, you know the ladies are off to stay. Well, I took that road to heaven, but somehow I came falling back down. If you're think and you are taught to drink, it only gets passed around, yeah. Did you know this is where I go? This is my road to heaven. Whoa,
Welcome to Interview with the KOL. And I know this guy right here beside me may not be like, maybe he doesn't like being called a KOL, but I tell you what, in my opinion, he is a leader and his opinions matter. So what is up, my friend, MikeyG?
Dude, you're the first person that has invited me to tell my story. Now, I know we'll probably won't go as deep as I do because I kind of tend to go pretty deep, but I'm super excited about this. I've done I wrote this on my tweet, right? Horrible job branding myself. I think it's a large part of a KOL or content creator's journey. But I'm just so busy and I love what I do, but I am going to be doing more of these and I couldn't be more happy and appreciative for the invite, man. So thank you.
Absolutely. And, you know, I said on my original post announcing this interview that you were a major inspiration for me even getting started on this, bro. I told you backstage, I literally bought a mic the day after I went on your podcast. And so you're a massive inspiration to me. I think you're doing a great job for the space. You've interviewed over 200 founders and mentor type figures in the Web3 space. I got to know, have you done any Web2 interviews of anybody that inspired you? And not only that, Mike, like what exactly inspired you to actually get started on this journey? Because this is you went pretty far into this.
So Web 2, I'll call Kevin D Gods, even though he has a Web 3. So Kevin Hendrickson.
Yep.
You all immediately should follow this dude. He's 25 years, been on my podcast. Silicon Valley entrepreneur, exited his company for some absurd money, like $200 million, sold to Microsoft. And he is just a brilliant mind. He's working on some stealth things in the background, but he does I think an entrepreneurship mentorship kind of newsletter. And what is his actual handle? I think it's just Kevin D Gods.
Yeah, Kevin.
Examples, but yes, I've done multiple over the time. And actually, when we talk about it, my company, Midlife Crisis, is actually a holding company that involves multiple verticals. I think most people think me as a podcaster and content creator, but I actually do a ton more because it is a big secret that most content creators don't want to tell you is 99% of them don't make any money. And the 1% that do have been doing it for a long time or basically have lucked out and been in the right place at the right time. So it's really, really difficult to make money just making content. It's really hard.
Well, speaking of content and speaking of making content, I wanted to point your attention to something that we created especially for you.
Oh,
and that's the background.
Yeah, I loved it. I noticed that the PFP was mixed in there too. By the way, the video games too, because I'm a big gamer. I'm excited about that. But also, I loved the intro song. just got the vibes going.
Thank you, bro. And a little bit of lore. I am a musician. That's a song that I wrote 20 years ago.
Oh,
And I
really?
have so many different songs I've written. Yeah, I've dived deep into poetry and lyric writing and songwriting, and that's like a big part of my life, along with artwork.
Yeah.
So that my road to heaven, that's one of the songs I've written, and that's something I play on this. I'm thinking about changing it up maybe for the next for this next live stream, whatever you call it, and start showing people some of my other music. But yeah, that definitely brings a good vibe. So you brought up a second ago, bro, that you're a gamer. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. It was really inspired by my interest and me wanting to put the wolves in the Wolves DAO on a pedestal, because I think they're super interesting. And I personally am playing video games all my life. So I think that we start there, dude.
Too.
What exactly did you get into? I saw you wearing a Legend of Zelda shirt when you stood up a moment ago.
Yes.
Is that one of your go-tos when you were a kid?
Oh man, I've got so many things to talk about video games. I did not get a Switch 2 pre-order. That pissed me off. So I have had every console that has existed except for a Neo Geo and a Jaguar. People don't even probably know what the hell they are. 32X, Sega CD, Sega Genesis, every Nintendo, every PlayStation, every Xbox. I've owned them all. I would be.
And the Dreamcast, Dreamcast. What is that?
Not only did I have the Dreamcast, that was during college, and I was using Pirate Bay, and I ripped literally every Dreamcast game that existed, because the Dreamcast, little tidbit for you, was the only, like, if you wanted to mod your PlayStation or Xbox, like, you were soldering shit on, and if you messed it up, your Xbox was cooked, right? Dreamcast, someone figured out how to put create a boot disk, and so all you had to do was download this boot disk, burn it to a CD. You would put the boot disk in, and then it would pop on the TV and say, "Put your pirated game in now," and that was it. You just put your pirated game in, and it worked. It was beautiful. Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems I ever owned, hands down. Nintendo 64, probably top dog in my mind. I don't know, the original PlayStation and PlayStation 2 are fantastic too. I never really got into the Xbox stuff, but I've been to, E3 back in the day. I did a lot of advertising stuff. I got to work with a lot of big game studios, which was really cool. But yeah, it all started because my dad bought me Nintendo, original Nintendo. He actually had an Intellivision. Most people probably don't know what that is. And after I had the Nintendo, I just fell in love. Bro, do you remember Fred Savage, the Wizard, when they introduced the Power Glove in Super Mario 3?
I do remember that. And matter of fact, I still have the Power Glove.
Yeah, the Power Glove's incredible. That's got to be worth $100 million now.
Oh no, it was pretty beat up. It's sitting in my storage, and I also have the the Olympic game, the Olympics, where you have the game pad, and you ran on it, but everybody goes like this with their hands, and then the duck hunt gun. Dude, I had all that. Dude, I have a freaking huge collection of games from the past. That's amazing though. So speaking of Zelda though, man, you're wearing that shirt. I want to freaking get a shirt, a Legend of Zelda shirt after I saw that. Did you play all the Zeldas? I mean, which one was your favorite one? Because I love Zelda.
I think the original Link to the Past was, I think, the next one. Obviously, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the couple that were on Wii. What was the one? Was like Skyward Sword or something? I actually really enjoyed that. And then, of course, Breath of the Wild was fantastic. I started playing the newer one, Tears. I think it's Tears of Kingdom of Tears.
Tears of the Kingdom, yeah.
Yeah, I got bored with it.
Really?
I just stopped playing it. I mean, I still need to play it. I'm sure I'll go through it at some point. But here's the thing, man. Once you have a kid and, full-time job, building 3 companies now, I mean, it has to be mobile anymore, man. I don't even have the time to sit down in front of a TV to play a game. So if I can't play it for 10 to 15-minute spurts or on my cell phone or on a Switch. It's just not happening.
So you mentioned a moment ago your dad. Apparently, your dad was a big time gamer because he had some of these OG consoles. Is he the one that originally got you into playing games and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have pictures of me and like my dad sitting and playing Sega and hanging out. And I don't think he necessarily like he wasn't gaming all the time. I think it was really like a novel thing, just like the Nintendo for all age ranges back then, right? Like even my mom was playing Mario Brothers with me. Did they continue to play video games as I got older? Not really, but he was an inspiration. The fact that he introduced it to me for sure.
Right on. So a moment ago, you mentioned right in your opening statement that not a lot of you don't get a chance to tell your story. You really don't, and it's something that was I'm not used to, right? I mean, when I went on your podcast, I was not expecting to just like vent like I did, and I ended up telling you everything. I mean, it was kind of it was like a therapeutic moment in my life. It was pretty cool though, man. You make people feel comfortable though. That's one of your talents.
Appreciate it.
Um, I just wanted to give you a little bit of props for that. Going into your Web3 journey though, I'm interested. So, how did you find out about Web3? Like, how did you get into this?
So I don't know if I told you this story in the intro call, but I was just chilling one day. This was, pandemic, COVID, and I'd always, as you can imagine, I cultivate deep relationships. So even at work, there's still tons of people I talk to. I'm one of these rare people. I have 5 of my best friends that I grew up with. I'm in my 40s. We still hang out like on a regular basis, even across the country. Like we'll meet up once or twice a year. And so this guy had built a good relationship. He at the time was managing all of digital for Geico, so my old Geico buddies. And he just called me up because I was a design guy. And he was like, dude, I have this thing called a cool cat. I was like, all right, man, I don't know really what you're talking about. And he sent it to me and I opened it up and I was like, bro, this is a 5-year-old drawing of a blue cat. Like, what are you doing with your life, man? And I was like, "You're close to 40, like, have you lost your mind? What are you doing?" And he's like, "No, man, just trust me." And so they were doing their first, real derivative with Time Magazine. So it was the 4 founding cool cats holding a Time Magazine in an environment. The competition was if you had a cool cat, you could enter this creative competition to create a fake Time Magazine cover talking about the rise of crypto and NFTs. He told me to use this word fudding. I'm like, whatever, man. I have no clue what you're talking about. I literally made something like 5, 10 minutes in Photoshop, haphazardly just whipped something up, sent it to him, and we like win this thing. He calls me hysterical like a month later. And I was like, cool, man. I'm glad I helped you out. And he's like, no, man, you need to go to this thing called OpenSea. And, ETH was over like 4 grand at the time. This is right around Bored Ape time. I don't know if they had minted yet. Gary Vee was talking about dropping his V friends. This thing was like 25 grand. And I was like, what in the hell is this? And that's when I made MikeyG NFT because it rhymed and went down that rabbit hole, brother.
So I want to segue into something that you told me about your next journey into Web3, and that had to do with what you saw and a void that you needed to fill. And you were kind of, if I remember right, aimlessly kind of like not knowing what to do in the space. But can you tell me about your expedition into Discord and other communities? Because I know that you were part of some pretty banger communities, or at least some communities that turned out to be bangers back in 2020 or early 2022.
Yeah. It's funny that I didn't even realize that so I do intro calls for my podcast guests. You were part of one. I have said this intro call well over 1,000 times. Which, by the way, side tangent, if you are not getting on the phone and talking to Web3 people and you want to be in Web3, you're making a grave mistake. By far the best thing I've done over the last 4 to 5 years. Just actually talking. And I'm not saying getting on voice chat and Discord, one-on-one call, genuinely connecting, asking them who they are as a human being is critically important. And
Agreed.
since
Fair.
I've done this intro call, I've actually told my story to founders thousands of times, so it's prepped me well for this. So thank you for the question, though. As far as my journey once I found it, I always say this, my original thesis and why I was super excited about Web3 was community and brand, right? I'm a brand marketing creative guy. So that's what really fascinated me. I fundamentally saw, like, immediately it clicked with me, like, holy crap, you can token gate a community, you can build a brand with community. And since then we've seen that. I think we get stuck in these metas like token gating communities. I don't think most founders truly utilize the full potential of their community. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on how do you activate community and align it to your overarching business strategy goals. So that fascinated me. So I went down, I was a mod, community manager, rugged, scammed, had no clue what I was doing. But I was always good at building really, really deep relationships yet again. And, the Christian and Mojito were original hate mods with me. 4 years later, we've just started a space because we've cultivated deeper relationships. I mean, I was talking to Christian like on a daily basis on the cell phone. Like we were just fascinated by what was going on. It was this crazy hype time. And he had
And
found
take a step back if you don't mind. Sorry for interrupting, but for anybody that's out there right now, the 54 viewers, which brand are you talking about, and who is Christian related to this brand?
So Christian has become one of my best close buds from Hate Beast. Before it was called Hape, it's called Hate Beast. And so before we get there, I was about to go into, I found actually, honestly, cannot even, I mean, trying to think of these. OX Vampire was like one of the first mod jobs I got, which was ended up being a straight rug, younger kids just trying to make some money. Um, I don't remember. So I do remember where I met Christian, though. I was the community manager for this project called Space Cubes, and it was by far the best 3D artwork I had seen at the times. There were little cubes. He had made like, really shiny metallic ones. He made ones that had hair that was like really lifelike. Guy from France had a creative agency. This Joker decided to cut off all of his clients, think Web3 was going to change his life, had used all of his creative computers, and then bought more high-end computers because at the time to make these things, like you needed serious compute power to output thousands of these. 2 months worked on this, and this is a long story short. Complete mess, breakdown. Ended up just kind of rugging everybody, and it wasn't because it was intentional. It was because this dude put his entire life on the line for this project, and it did not mince out. It went sideways, and the dude was fucked, man. Like, sorry, can I cuss?
Anything you want, man.
Totally fucked, right? And so he just disappeared. So throughout this time, though, I built a relationship with the community, and Christian was one of them. And that was probably kind of my first realization into like, okay, these are what these founders are like. This is what it's like to manage a Discord. Here are the things that you pay attention to when you're running a community. And this was in 2021. And Christian, like, we just hit it off, and he was kind of inviting me to these alpha servers and giving me the skinny, because when you're working like that hard, it's really difficult again to like keep up with everything that's else going on. And he was like, dude, from New York, there's a street brand. They just dropped the trailer. You got to figure out how to be how to be a mod there. And I was like, okay, what is it? I actually think I was streaming. I was streaming video games at the time. And I looked at the trailer, and it was Hate Beast. And, Digimental, who still works for Hape, had the just very simple idea. He's one of the top, and ironically too, it's weird how all this connects. He worked for Framestore, which is one of the top animation studios in the world based out of Europe. But when I worked for Geico, we used Framestore because we used their US branch in New York City they're the ones who animate the gecko for Geico. So I was
Mm.
like, "Oh, I know Frame Store's legit. Like, this is probably one of the first legit things I've seen." And he told me when the Discord dropped, I joined. This was the time where, like, bro, if you were not early in the Discord, it was failing. Like, there was freaking 50,000 people in it overnight, most of it
I
bots.
remember.
And my strategy was, though, since I was older, I was in my mid-30s at this point, or mid to late 30s, and my strategy was, "Okay, I've got a background, I got myself put together, I'm just not, no offense to 16-year-olds, 16-year-old just, like, trolling Discord." I was like, "I actually have value to offer." And so this was before, um, founders knew, they just didn't realize the shit show that was about to
Mm.
ensue. So, like, Digimental Starp's Hate Beast, he doesn't even have his DM shut down. This
Mm.
back in 2021, they didn't even realize what was about to happen, and sure enough,
Mm.
they start the server, and Digimental's got, like, 100,000 DMs, but my strategy was, the instant I get in, I go to the top right-hand corner, DM the founder, and say, "I'm the mod for you. I live in, San Francisco Bay Area. Here's my time zone. This is what I can do for you, X, Y, and Z." Right place, right time, dude. I DM Digimental. He doesn't even remember this because we still communicate and talk to this day. Seconds later, like literally seconds later, he's like, "Oh, dude, where do you live again?" And I was like, "The San Francisco Bay Area." He's like, "Perfect. Need somebody in that time zone. Here's your PFP. You're a mod." And I was like, "What? Like, is that easy?" And then, 3 days later, there's like 20,000 people applying to be a mod at Hate Beast, right? And so he sends me like the certified blue Hape mod picture, and I go like immediately the mod channel opens up in the Hape Discord, and I'm like, holy shit, this is insane.
Mm.
Because the chat at that time was just, it was wild, right? It was out of control. And my job was not too demanding at the time, and it was COVID. And so, dude, I was in that server 12, 13 hours a day, man, for months.
So I remember that time. I do. And I did not get to mint, but I sure as hell bought it off the secondary. And I remember it was
Brutal. I'm sorry.
FOMO. It was FOMO.
Mhm.
But I tell you, I think I may have told you this. I think I bought mine for 8 ETH at the time. And I actually bought two of them just because I wanted to, have one and flip one. Well, it ended up being the one that I flipped was a one of one. I think I told you with the samurai swords, was white background. He was wearing like a white gi, and then he had those
Mhm.
stitches in his mouth. It was an awesome one. And I think the guy ended up listing. I'm not sure if he ever sold it for like, I want to say it was like 666 ETH or something crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But
Same my story. So they at first we were told like through the grapevine, like we're probably gonna get one Hape for free. And then it ended up being, I think we ended up with like 3 or 4. I don't remember how many it was. Um, I was the one mod that I was like, "You guys are out of your mind if you're gonna keep all these. Like, these sons of bitches are gonna be worth like 20, 30, 40,000 bucks. You're damn straight, after the amount of time I worked, I am selling one for 20 some thousand dollars."
mm,
Which, by the way, helped pay for like my next round of IVF for my son, which is like insane, right? Like that, a Hape did that, which is
that's
a
amazing.
really cool story. But of course, the one I picked to flip pre-reveal is the golden Hape that sold
Oh,
immediately for like 80 ETH.
holy
It's the one.
moly.
I have a 1 in 4 chance, right? A 1 in 4 chance of picking the wrong Hape, or 1 in 3, whatever it was. I picked the wrong one.
Mm.
Brutal.
It always seems to be the story, right? It always seems to be the story with these reveals. It's like the one that got away. But you know, a moment ago you had mentioned how you got in and you had this idea. It's like an epiphany, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
that you just reached out to Digimental. it seems to be that you're like built a little different because not a lot of people were doing it back then, man. And now it seems to be the meta, right? Because it's already been a cycle and people are doing that. They're automatically reaching out. There's a lot of people that aren't worth their weight, but there's obviously you. And you were a little bit more seasoned. You're a little bit older at the time. You were competing with some people that were a little bit younger and they didn't have the skill set that you had. Have you been what's the word? How do you phrase this? Have you seen yourself early in any other like things in life? I mean, obviously you were early to these podcasts. You were early
Right.
to modding for Discord. Is there anything else that you saw that you found yourself early to just by your intuition?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as odd as it is, and we could talk about this later. I'm totally open about this too, but like mental health has been a big part of my life. And I would describe my early 20s and 30s. I was kind of numb, just doing things that I was told to do. But for some odd reason, it never took away like that part which you just described was like, how can you do things a little bit differently? I think it's the creativity side of me. I went to design school. I've always been fascinated by how can you think about things differently, going against the norm a little bit. So when I got my corporate job at Geico, my first job was a designer, but then the like next couple jobs that I got and the opportunities I created for myself were positions that didn't exist. Right. And so that is a form of that. I always saw like, hey, there's opportunity because people are not doing it right. Or I'm not gonna lie, man. Majority of the time it's just people are lazy. Just gonna be straight with you. I don't think in, talking to hundreds of people on my podcast, one of the things that's pretty clear is there are a lot of pretty unfortunate like people. I'm talking like people that have made it to the US that were born in a third world country, like dirt floors, no clean water, like they're just trying to survive, man. And when they finally make it here, like their 25% effort is like 200% middle class America effort. And so even for the people that have lived like very fortunate upbringings like myself, I either felt like I was just a little bit of it is timing and luck, right? Like my first job at my professional job, I was working with a lot of older people that like went through design school when PDFs weren't even a thing, right? So like the computer was like magic. So I had like a little mover advantage there because I understood technology. But at the end of the day, people like to be comfortable, and I don't think people like to go outside their comfort zone as much as people think they do.
So a moment ago, you brought up fortunate upbringing, and some people might attribute that to putting a value to something, right?
Mhm.
Like money value to something. But you told me something on your podcast that I will never forget, and it's something that I am envious about. Okay, because
Yeah.
I don't have this, bro.
Mhm.
And that is lifelong friends from when you were a child.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned a second ago that you have best friends today
Mhm.
that are still around. You have best friends from a kid that are still around today. Not a lot of people have that, dude. And that right there is something that I find extremely interesting. Some of my favorite movies that I've ever watched, like Stand By Me,
Oh, yeah.
It, Lord of the Flies, some of these movies, right? Especially
Lost
like when
Boys,
you
bro. You remember that one?
yeah, you watch this movie, It, right, where there's a pack of kids, they're fighting Pennywise, then later on they come back together and reunite. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit about that? Like, how is it, man, having these lifelong friends? Do you guys still get along? Do you guys fight? Is it what is it? Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it, I think, is, when you're lifelong. So I have basically 2 companies, which is the midlife crisis kind of media entity, which we're not even concentrating on media. That the concept here was I just got out of my midlife crisis. I went through crazy mental health, almost died. And as I was getting out, my buddy Maddie was going through his, and his life was starting to fall apart. And when we were little, I mean, I was knocking. I'm the age where I had to go knock on a door to go play, right? I couldn't text anybody. We always, for some odd, we really like, dude, you remember that movie Radio Flyer?
Yes, the great
Dude,
movie.
we watched that movie together in his basement. Immediately went into his garage and built our own self radio flyer. We're like, we want to fly. Why would we not want to do that? And so we create this radio flyer. We built a ramp in his backyard. Of course, we almost kill ourselves because the ramp falls apart and no one's flying in a freaking radio flyer. But we did that, right? And so we always dreamed of starting a company together when we were older. We were like, dude, what better way to spend life than to make money, travel the world, give back, but do it with your best buddies? And I think, and I just had B Rock, OG Triple Media. Have you heard of
No,
them?
I don't.
You
No,
gotta
I
look
don't.
them up. B Rock's a fantastic human being. It's not doing wrapped in a lot into like the plague ecosystem, space riders, like that whole crew. Amazing human being. And this is interesting. This is actually an insight I just recently had. Never thought about this. He had the opposite. So my parents got divorced when I was little. My dad was home. He around the same age. His mom was home. And he had this amazing insight. I was like, holy shit, this is actually what happened to me too, which was I missed my dad was working all the time. He had to support us, right? So I didn't get the prototypical, even though my grandfather, super wealthy, successful entrepreneur. And when he passed away, we got some money, which had allowed us to move kind of out of the not so nice area into like your prototypical white suburbia picket fence in a beautiful place. But he had to still work, and I didn't have the home life once my parents got divorced that like most people want. And so I was at my best friend's house that are now my lifelong friends because he had the most amazing mom and dad and just that home environment. His mom's always making fresh, warm cookies, and he had a bunch of video games, and we were just it was safe, and it felt like this is what I think it should be like at home. And that insight, I think, is why I have those lifelong friends because I wasn't wanting to be at home as much, and so I was wanting to be at everybody else's house that replicated the environment that I wanted, which came through forms of multiple different friends. But that's during your formative years, and when you bond like that at that age, as you get older, it's this just unspoken bond, right? Because
Mhm.
we couldn't be um, like my buddy just retired from the Marines, right? My other buddy is an engineer. My other buddy's a finance guy. We all don't even have the same political views and believings, and we have drastically different opinions on things. But like we're bros for life, so that doesn't change, and it's become stronger over time because the fact that we're still talking. Three of them I went to Penn State with. Like, how rare is it that you're like childhood buddies? You're still talking in your 40s, and you go to college together too.
Wow, that's
Uh,
rare.
and so I think it
Definitely.
really spawns from that my yearning to wanna feel safe and have that connection when I was little.
Just a moment ago, you said the word spawn, and that word evokes emotion in me. One of my favorite comic books, by the way, when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But the one thing that I personally have struggled with is spawning some inner demons, man, that just it won't leave me alone. It won't leave me alone. Also, you mentioned a second ago that there was some mental health issues that you've dealt with in the past, which
Mhm.
have held you down.
Yeah.
Do you mind getting into a little bit more of a touchy subject right here of mental health and inner demons and what you've had to personally struggle with and overcome?
Sure, man. I mean, I think that's 2 reasons why I continued the media side of things to set out as one, eventually to raise awareness about mental health because there's just so many different facets around it that need drastic help. But I've always been very cognizant of it in the sense of like we're in a safe forum in the sense that like nobody can come up and talk. I just don't think it's appropriate in my mind to do like a mental health space because at any moment in time you could be talking about pretty heavy stuff. God forbid somebody comes up on stage and is like, I'm ready to do something crazy. I think you like in those scenarios in these controlled environments, like should have a mental health expert there. So I would totally willing to do that if I had the right people in the room. But here I feel safe in the sense that it's just me and you talking, and I think my advice could help somebody out. And I would say I did not know. I was probably mildly, more than mildly depressed a majority of my life. And mine manifested in, and this could sound trivial to some people, but dude, what 7 to 13, 6 to, your formative years, when something traumatic happens, it profoundly impacts you. And looking back, I just didn't realize, right? So my parents got divorced at 9. I was what in my mind thought was living the prototypical life. Yeah, my dad worked a lot and he wasn't, he was tired when he was a postman, he was just delivering mail every day. It was a tiring job. But my mom was like, she's just the best human in the world, like saw the good out of everybody. We would have dance parties over at our house. And I had that loving home that everybody wants. And then it all fell apart. And that was, I mean, I still vividly remember the day that my mom came down and like told us like, "Hey, we're leaving." Which ensued like lots of fighting between the parents and stuff. And what I did, which was, and I think everyone needs to survive. This obviously impacted my psyche more than I knew. And but what I did was continue to be happy-go-lucky Mikey G, but like double down on that. And everything that affected me from that day on, all the way till my late 30s, I would just shove deep down inside. And I would just be like, hey, everything's good. I was the guy, hey, Mikey, how's it going? Like that toxic positivity, which I hate so much now, which is ironic. How's your day going? Fantastic, man. Everything is amazing. And then obviously you go to college, then alcohol comes into the picture. And I was always, that life of the party guy, Mikey, just going out of control, tons of fun, but like didn't ever have a hey man, you should probably just like cool it at that moment in time. Because here's another problem I think with at least in America, we've kind of glorified this binge drinking. And so even though looking back, I was absolutely so messed up and definitely had a drinking problem, it didn't seem like that big of a deal because in college everybody was doing it, right? Like this was just normalized. But like no one should be drinking till they black out. Like that is just not healthy for a human
It's
being.
not fun either.
And which, by the way, I have I have drank so many times to that point that I can't even tell you, right? And so I'm doing this through my 20s, and then I get the Geico job, and once you start making TV commercials and stuff, you got big, big budgets, and you're going out to these crazy dinners, and like, dude, if somebody's sitting a $2,000-3,000 bottle of wine in front of me, I'm gonna drink as much of that wine as I humanly possibly can, and I'm gonna order the $100 steak. I'm gonna do it all, right?
So
Like,
big.
gluttony wasn't even like that was like a tiny word compared to what I was doing with my life. But at the time, it was like, again, it was transition from college, and then it transitioned into like I was basically living Don Draper's life from Mad Men, and this culture of advertising and corporate America and going out to these dinners. Again, that partying vibe was glorified just now in a corporate environment. And so I was just doing everything to like keep up with the Joneses when it came to kind of drinking and the socialization. Because let's be honest, to move up the local, the corporate ladder, you need to be able to hang out and socialize and reflect whoever your leadership is. And my leadership had always been in these creative advertising jobs. Let's just be honest, alcoholics, luscious, right? And so if I couldn't play that game, I wasn't going to be able to move up the ladder. So not only did I play the game, I excelled at that game. And I did that till my mid 30s, man. And one of the things that even though we had money and I lived in a pretty really nice neighborhood growing up, um, my parents were really poor. Well, my dad was really poor growing up, and there was still just this message ingrained in my head that we're poor and we don't have a ton of money. And so I've since, I moved across the country to the West Coast, left the Geico job, left everything I knew. All my friends and family are back there. Just me and my wife. Her family like lives, further down from me. Well, hold on, did I cut out?
No, I think you're still good.
Okay, sorry, somebody's calling me on Telegram. Um,
Was it
I
this gentleman right here? Is he the one that's that photo bombing?
no,
Whatever you call it.
it's my
What's
man,
up,
Russell.
Aiden?
It's my other co-founder. So I move across the country, right? Friends and family gone, totally alone, starting a new job, senior level management, like tech startup downtown San Francisco, insanely stressful, continuing to drink. I go from this like Geico life down to now like Silicon Valley startup life. Bro, I had a bottle of whiskey on my desk like all day long, right? Like, and they, they intentionally, it's not by chance that they provide you catered breakfast, lunch, and dinner just because they're nice. It's like they want you in that office as long as humanly possible, right? So they have the pool table, they have the ping pong table, they have all this cool shit, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you want rum and whiskey at your desk? Go for it. I don't care." And so this was like just yet another spinning out of control. Yeah, I mean, we would literally go down to happy hour and then come back up to work like hammered, right? And so this is now in my late 30s, and so I'm going on like 15 solid years of living this this life, and it just takes a toll on your body. I move across the country. I'm alone. I have this fear of finances, and then we buy a very expensive brand new townhome in Silicon Valley, Bay Area, East Bay, right? And bro, I just woke up one morning and my first thought was something is gravely wrong. I had a very severe case, because like I said, I think I've just been so good at bottling this all down deep inside. And I woke up and I was like, something is not right. I felt like I'd throw up across the room. And that started the journey of like pretty much a year of like mental health pills, psychiatry, therapy, like, bro, it was brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. And I somehow throughout all of that, kept a job at a startup and then got a new job, which by the way, don't remember my job interview. Blacked it out. Couldn't even tell you how I got that job. Uh, got a new job, never got fired, never unfortunately did anything crazy. And I look back at that time, man, I'm like, bro, if I could do that, there's literally nothing I can do in life.
So,
That was
in
upbringing.
in a space, in a world of memes and happy-go-lucky vibes
Mhm.
and FOMO, we have trust, right? We have trust, and we have midlife crisis. We have
Yeah,
midlife crisis.
yeah.
So, did any of these events that you just described lead up to the name of midlife crisis and inspire you to actually begin this journey?
Yeah, so it's another great question. I think this is another thing that founders miss a lot when I talk to. Obviously in 2021, 2022, there's people that are trying to make money, right? Like they're like, I'm catching the Web3 bug. I can put out anything and I'm gonna make a rack of cash. Well, those are the people that end up extremely unhappy because they've effed people over to get where they are. And that realization eventually comes back, right? And so with midlife crisis, me and my buddy Maddie knew we wanted to do something. We didn't know what, but we both, like I said, he was going through a pretty dark, deep time. I just got out of my time, and it was like, okay, what do we want to do? And we wrote this like, oh man, it was like 5 to 6 page manifesto. And we just like wrote down things that were important to us, like be kind, pay it forward, think deeply, learn from everything, you know, make the right decision when it usually is the hardest decision you're ever going to have to make. Because these were all the mistakes that we had made leading up to this. And we didn't even really have the name. We wrote this manifesto and we said, the biggest thing that influenced me was, I don't know if you ever read, and I forget the name of the book, but it is really Zappos, the shoe company, created this whole like mission, vision, culture. And it's a great book. And we were doing the same thing because I really believe that like if you don't have a mission and a vision, you're just, what the hell are you creating? So we wrote this 8 page manifesto and we boiled it down to bringing back the lost art of genuine human connection. That was it. And we were like, that is important to us.
Can you
And
say
then
that again? Can you say that again? I think that's
bringing,
important.
bringing back the lost art of genuine human connection. I think it's
Love
critically
it.
important, right? And then since we've layered on, well, it wasn't layered on. That's still our mission statement. And the thing that I usually follow up with is the reason why that's so important is we're more connected from technology than we have been in history of man. But we're more depressed, we're more anxious, we're more disconnected than we ever been in the history of man. And that does not make sense. And the only conclusion we could come to is people do this, but they don't actually do it, if you understand what I'm saying. They don't go deep. They don't really ask you, why do you feel the way you feel? What makes you tick? Why did you have a bad day? These are such simple questions, but they just aren't part of our language anymore. And it's so saddening to me. And that's what I do with my podcast because I think it's important. And I've realized over time, over the last couple years, uh, it's the most special thing I think everybody should strive to do. It's the hardest thing, and people go through their whole lives and never figure it out. But if you can align your superpower with what you're passionate about and then make an impact with that, which I know I do with my podcast because I've been told hundreds of times I do, that is it for me. There's nothing else I need to be doing with my life other than how do I continue to grow this and make more of an impact?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's a breath of fresh air because as I mentioned before, it seems that and there's nothing wrong with this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this because everybody needs fun, everybody needs memes, everybody needs to laugh, but like you said before, the way that you buried and you were just kind of like this Frank the Tank party animal all your life, it's
What?
bound to come out and surface up one of these days, right? And
100%.
so it's like it's good just facing those demons and just kind of like getting those out in the open, kind of clearing the air. I read something the other day and I want to know your thought on this. Okay. There's
Mhm.
always like a couple different ways to look at what people say. And they're different languages, although it's the same language, but it's a different frequency, but the same pain. So like what I read was you say I'm not okay. They hear I'm dramatic. You say I'm trying. They hear I'm weak.
Mm.
Are any of those things are any of those things something that you actually like dealt with where you're trying your hardest to just like reach out and just try to like scream out, hey, I need some freaking help during that phase of your life, and
Yeah.
people just said, oh, Mikey, he's dramatic, he's just this or that or the other. Are there any of your friends, for instance, or your family, anybody close to you,
Yeah.
did they help you out of that hole, or is it something that was kind of a little bit of a holdback?
Yeah, and I talk about this concept of life, and I'm glad a lot, and I'm glad you asked. I could talk about this for hours, but a couple ways I'll go with this is one, and I actually did it. So we started this Top Unfiltered Minds podcast with Christian and Mojito, my old Hate Beast moms, in one of our sections of our space. Sorry, it's not a podcast, it's a space, because you have to have a space to grow too in this space. Like my podcast, I need spaces to grow and exposure. In one of our sections of the space is a minute. You got a minute, we time it, and you have a rant. My last rant was about some of this stuff, and one being toxic positivity. I will tell you the most frustrating thing that I've ever experienced was being in the 15th layer of hell, trying to go to work, acting like I was a normal human being. And then all I would ever see, and now I know I'm sure it was my perception at the time because I was in a bad place, but all I ever thought I saw was, you can think yourself out of this, or it's all about, what you can do and how positive you are. And it's like, people, my brain chemicals are like not functioning. Like, this is, yes, that's if you had a bad day and you're feeling down. But the people that are really suffering from that, it's the worst message you can hear. All it does is make you more angry. And you go from, like, at this moment, I'm going from like extreme, extreme anger to extreme, extreme sorrow. And it was just like making that go vibrate even more. So that's but like those mantras at like what you said of the opposite, that's exactly how I felt. The problem with social, I think, is we've gone too far on the you can overcome it with your mind. And I'm just saying my personal experience. I'm sure there's people that have tons of different experiences, want to argue the other way. That's cool. You have your opinion. This is mine. Two, I will say this. The number one reason why I'm here is because of my support network. So I was actually fortunate to, and I will attribute this to my mom talking to me every day, but ultimately my in-laws and my wife, man, just guardian angels. Never questioned why I was saying what I said. Never made me feel bad for who I was at the moment in time, and just undying support, man. And it's by, I mean, I I, I don't know what I don't know what I would have done without that.
That's awesome. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. It really is that you started this journey right here. Um, your podcast. I wanted to like I wanted to talk a little bit more about your podcast because that's what you're creating right now.
Mhm.
What other value proposition does your podcast bring to the space?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think so. I'll tell you from the founder's perspective of which my pitch is, and I'll tell you what I think communities. Well, it's a little bit of both, and then I'll expand upon what the space. So from founder perspective, my value is a couple things. One, you as a founder have an insanely busy life. I'm going to give you an hour and a half to deeply reflect, like you experienced, on your life, the things that you've done, been called transformative, been called therapeutic, and people just don't get a chance to do that anymore in this day and age. Everything's now, now, now. Everybody's busy. Just sitting and thinking about what happened is so, so critical, especially as a founder. Two, most founders do a horrible job branding themselves. This is one of the most unique experiences going through my podcast to start that journey. Not only do I give you this live experience, but I give you and deliver you evergreen content that you can always go back to and make people revisit, like, hey, I had this unbelievable conversation with Mikey. This is who I am. This is what I am about. And then three, and this is actually why I started this is what my gift to Web3 is, I think. And when I got into the hate situation, it was within a 24-hour period, DMs filled up. I'll give you $1,000 to, do a giveaway. I'll give you 1,200, 1,500 bucks, $2,000 to pump my project. right? And I just integrity, top dog for me. I couldn't bring myself to do that. And so my solution was, okay, everyone says, and back in the day, it was said way more than it is today, but which was do your own research, right? Because there was so many scammers. I said, all right, well, I got a solution. I'm going to bring the person that says that they're going to deliver X, Y, and Z to you. I'm going to have an authentic conversation with them. You can believe whether or not you want to spend your hard-earned money with them or not. Like, that is my gift to the space. And I will continue to do that because I don't feel bad giving my thoughts or my feelings or saying I think this person's a good person. That doesn't mean they're going to be a successful business person. But I can say from what I've experienced, I think you're a great person, Paul. I think you're admirably trying to make something interesting in Web3. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but I can at least put my brand behind that and say I thoroughly believe in it. And then two, the other thing that none of these KOLs or creative people are thinking as much as they should, it doesn't give me any legal liability. I'm just having a human conversation with you. I'm not saying go buy this token or buy this project because that is a whole nother layer of legality that will eventually happen. Um, take there's no there's it isn't by accident that Thread Guy and Frank just disappeared.
Mhm.
Those guys got them into a rack world of hurt. Like, that's what happens when you start messing around with millions of dollars of people's money. I never wanted to end that way. I saw that years ago, right? And so I think that is my ultimate gift to Web3, and I will continue to do that. I will give you genuine, authentic conversation for you to make your decision how you want to make your decision. And then the last thing that I have done is I could have a lot of money in my bank account if I took everything that came my way for me, which some KOLs and creators have, and they've made a rack. I've given hundreds of thousands of dollars away in pre-sale spots and free NFTs because I believe that's the right thing to do, and I believe that karma will come around, and we'll continue to give that away. Mojito just gave away $100 for our last space. I'm going to give some free NFTs away for our next space. I do firmly believe in the power of giving.
So for any of the founders that are currently watching or anybody that just have a personal brand that they're building, are they all welcome on your podcast? And how do they get in touch with you and or your, I forgot his name, your buddy that co-founded it with you, Maddie?
So Maddie doesn't really do it much anymore. He's on one of our pillars is real estate, and he manages some a big property, and so he does not have much time to do this anymore. So I'm taking the media, he's doing the real estate, but Bubble is deeply ingrained with what I do. His regular name is Asaf. He does the strategy. He is incredible helping founders out. He can be blunt at times, but I think it's needed, and he's really, really good with understanding. All right, listen, if you want to make an NFT project and vibe out and make cool art, that's totally cool. But if you really want to make a business, you need to figure it out. You just can't tell me you're making X, Y, and Z that everyone else is telling you they're going to make, right?
Well, I can actually attest to that. And sorry for interrupting because you brought up Bubble and I couldn't remember his name, but I got on that follow-up call with Bubble.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to talk to him one-on-one because you weren't able to make that call, or maybe you came in just a little bit afterwards. But the guy, he does have a lot of really good insight and he is blunt. But see, the thing is, though, the contrarian opinions are the ones that matter most.
Right.
And so, right after that call with Bubble, it really got me thinking. There's a few things that I just about brand clarity. So I just want you to know, like you have a really, really good co-founder right there with you.
Thanks, man.
I will say, man, bringing back the lost art of real human connection is a banger. Freaking like
Genuine human connection.
Genuine, not okay. Real, genuine.
Bringing
Okay,
back the lost art of genuine human connection.
a genuine human connection. That's a banger mission statement.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
But to your question of how do you reach out to me,
Yeah.
X is the best way to get a hold of me. I'm on X all day long. I have a website. You can check out my podcast. I have a ton of social proof, top tier founders saying what their experience was with me. I actually offer an experience. It's not just a podcast. Like you just talked about, there's strategy calls, there's production. And as far as who I allow on, it's getting pretty nutty. So like, I could be booked out 4 months in advance if I want to. I have to balance. I need to make money myself. I'm a business, so I have to monetize as well too. So there's a balance of working with people that have budgets to help compensate for my time. It takes me tens of hours to do what I do. It's not just like everybody sees an hour and a half podcast. It's, as you saw, multiple messages leading up. There's lots of copy and thought that goes into the content. I'm cutting stuff post. I'm putting it up on Spotify. I'm re-editing. I'm writing threads. Like that takes a lot of time. And so it's balancing like someone like you, right, that is starting out that I just think is a good person that I think should get some exposure, like Dunks that doesn't have a huge name, but he's already written a children's book and he's really trying to make a change off of like a crazy story of his dog dying in COVID to I need the final Bosus and the Canasapiens of the world to expand my brand and get these quote unquote vanity metrics that everybody needs. So I continue to bring value. But I think that the thing that is, and it's funny because I talk to founders all day long about your why and what your value is. And it's taken me years to finally get to like what I think is the clear value that I offer, which is literally, like you said, this therapeutic experience. But I actually think of myself as one of the top kind of creative director producers in this space, as in I really deliver kind of like a live documentary experience to you and to the audience. And then I cut that out to tell these human stories. And people that are doing that at that level, I think I'm doing at, that shit's worth tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so I'm layering on this experience, this content. And oh, by the way, I can still get you thousands of impressions, but I am a creative director, content creator, and a publisher second. But I still can give you metrics and views on top of this other quality stuff that I'm delivering. And for some odd reason, I knew it. I mean, literally talked about it, but it wasn't until this like nuance of honing it in has that message really started resonating with people.
Absolutely. What platforms can people find you on right now other than X?
So we have a YouTube channel, Midlife Crisis. Spotify. My Spotify is on my website. I have a website. I keep on saying this, but I just never get around to it because I'm so busy. I'm gonna port my podcast over to Apple Music. And then we do have a Midlife Crisis TikTok account. I found a couple new AI tools that'll just let me instantly publish to YouTube and TikTok. I was not doing that much, but I'll start populating a lot of the content that you see on Twitter on those platforms as well too. We did Instagram for a little bit, but until I find something that can automate that, I just don't spend much time there. So TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, soon to be Apple Music, my website, and then obviously Twitter.
That's awesome, brother. Well, I will say we don't have as long as a platform as you provide. We just have an hour here today. I know that you're super busy, brother. So, but I wanted to thank you, man. I wanted to thank you for coming on today and accepting the invite. It's
sure.
really just, dude, it's so interesting. You are one of the more interesting people in this space, and
Thanks,
you're
man.
different, dude. You're just different. We know that from,
Thank
you know, when your vision of reaching out to founders from the beginning, and you seeing what the founders need, and then later on, after all of your journey of dealing with your own mental health and just getting held underwater, providing a platform for founders later, right, to voice their
For sure.
why, like you say. So, dude, I just want to say thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you, man. This has been amazing. I can't wait to do more like this. So if you see other opportunities, and then obviously we got to talk about our IRL idea. I talked to why can I not think of his Luke? I talked to Luke yesterday for a while.
Luke.
So let's definitely make that happen, because I just want to continue to make content and bring value to the space, like you said. So thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Right on, dude. Stay backstage for a minute. Just want to say a few things to you. But anyway, this is Paul. This is Mikey signing out. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Lord, well, I took that run to heaven, but somehow I came and falling back down. Well, that night on the beach, you know, you said you love me, but I don't believe a word from your mouth.